Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Covenant Custom. Today I'm going to quite literally be kicking it back to the basics with the hand tools I would suggest if you're first starting out, or at least add to the collection if you've been 3D printing for some time. These I all keep within hand's reach because I use them so often, and sometimes they come off the pegboard nice and other times they don't. But I am going to be detailing each and every one of them, what their uses are for, and how they'll come in handy with your 3D print operations. Starting out, I got my trusty set of Allen drivers, and if you just have an Allen key set, don't worry, I use those as well. You'll be able to get by just fine, but these things are awesome. You'll see that I use them for maintenance, modifications, or any projects that come up along the way. And my most used sizes are going to be ranging from 1.5 to 2.5, as these are most applicable to 3D printer hardware. The next up is going to be digital calipers, and I use this for a variety of things, whether I'm working on projects or if I'm doing calibrations. The jaws on the millimeter side of the caliper I'm commonly using for both printer calibrations with filament as well as measuring specific lengths for various projects. The jaws on the opposing side are going to be measuring internal diameters, say the inside of a cylinder, and we'll also take into account that there's a prong on the back of the caliper that you can use to measure depth. By placing the prong on the surface that you're looking to measure the depth of and the bottom of the ruler contacting the top surface, you'll be able to get an accurate measurement. Now we've got our snips. Yes, as users of 3D printers, this is a necessary tool, and while we're at it, we're not going to be cutting our filament at a straight angle. We are going to cut it at a 45 because the delivery to the print head through the Bowden tube will be that much easier. I'll also be using these snips to cut wires, whether I'm working on a project or if I am just trying to be a mad scientist. I'll also use them to strip them back so that I can solder them. The PTFE cutter is a great tool to have because using your eyeballs and a razor may not always provide the straightest cut. The importance of having a straight cut is when placing it into an extruder, you're going to want to make sure that it fully bottoms out and makes contact with the depth of the extruder through that coupler. The reason behind that is if you have any type of angle on the tube or if there's any openings, you could potentially have the filament catch on that hard edge. The results of a filament path getting disrupted will prevent it from actually making it to the hot end, and your filament sensor still has filament in it, so your printer keeps printing and you don't have a print on the bed by the time it's complete. The next is the nozzle wrenches. This is something that I am commonly using during maintenance. This is a wrench that came with one of the hot ends I purchased, and the other is from a basic 3D printer toolkit. It's nice because you've got this leverage with the long end when you're trying to crack the nozzle free, and then once it's loose, you can transition to the opposing side to quickly unthread it. Ah yes, a set of pliers. They come in handy for a variety of things. I'm using them to bed level my K1s, rip off any supports, and sometimes when filament is jammed in the extruder and I can't get a good grip on it with my fingers, take the pliers and rip it on out. Just make sure the extruder's unlocked. Now we've got our deburring tool, so if you haven't gotten the appropriate value for elephant's foot compensation in your slicer, you can knock off any of those hard edges on the base level of your print. That way you can get the nice smooth radius of whatever you're trying to print without that little lip being present on the bottom. This will also work if your print has straight walls and you don't want it to protrude at the base. And here we have a basic hobby razor. I am typically using this to open up the vacuum seal on filament spools, but it comes in handy for other uses as well if I'm trying to get any of the remaining support material off the underside of a print. And it's easily serviceable. You can just quickly replace the blade if it is dull or damaged, and you're right back to it. This is going to be extremely sharp, so I make sure to put my cap back on it so when I'm fumbling my hand to grab it again, I don't cut myself. I also have a pair of tweezers. It's helpful to have one that is set at an angle so that you can get down into various spaces that are otherwise hard to reach. By using the straight tweezers, you can grab and pull, or you can hold and place. Sometimes I use the end as a poker to be able to position hardware, and I'm able to grab things out of channels or holes that are hard to grab with my fingers. Next, I've got a needle file set, and although there are a lot to choose from in this assortment, I'm commonly using the ones that I can bore out holes with that are going to be in line with any of the 3mm or metric hardware that I'm typically using in prints and the parts that I'm producing with them. I do have a little bit of debris on this flat file because I do use that on occasion as well, but It's good to have the whole assortment if there's something that better suits your needs. Keeping my machines in good condition, alongside maintenance, I will do a belt tensioning procedure on the Core XY system. I did purchase the hardware kit from West 3D to be able to produce this. Essentially, what it's doing is gauging the tension of your belt so that you can check similarity from one side to the next. It'll also include this gauge of wires so that you can get it calibrated properly. With the 1.9 reading, I should be seeing that on the scale itself. Nifty as it is, there's a little holder for it, so when you go to place it away, you've got it all in one spot. The hardware kit is something you can purchase on its own if you want to print and assemble one yourself, or if you just want to take something out of the box and use it right away, you can purchase it as an entire assembly. There are also options like the BQ belt tensioner, and this essentially performs the same process. It's just a little over the top. I wouldn't say over-engineered because I love this stuff, but what it's doing is it's placing pressure against the belt to see what kind of distance it's able to flex. And by doing that, it will be able to provide results for both sides that you can match. The belt is going to be on the side closest to the probe or the prong, where my finger is placed. And as that prong comes forward, it will push against the belt to be able to give you the reading that you'll see on the scale. Belt tensioning is an important factor to consider because too loose it could skip teeth on the belt and cause the shift to print, and too tight and it could affect the surface quality of the print overall. Isopropyl alcohol. I am using it all of the time. Most of the time I'm using it to clean the build plate so that I can prepare that surface for the next print, making sure it's nice and clean and I will get good adhesion. I'm also using it on the front door of this enclosed machine as well as the outside. Because, let's face it, we all like to look inside the printer from time to time just to check and see how that print is going. Don't forget the panels if you've got them, as well as the lid if you've got one. All of these get cloudy over time due to off-gassing of the filament you're printing. Moving on to the actual maintenance side of things, I will apply isopropyl alcohol to a microfiber cloth, cleaning the motion system, whether it is linear rods or linear rail. And with all of that being said, having a set of paper towels and a microfiber to be able to assist in cleaning are going to be a great help. This next tool will assist you in cleaning lead screws. It is the Rod Sloth by Need It Make It. And with the threaded portion, it'll be able to clamp onto the lead screw, and running it up and down with the push of a button, we'll be able to clean it without having to pull out a toothbrush and go to town. I'll put a piece of paper towel in between it and saturate it with isopropyl alcohol, and I'll simply place it on the lead screw and jog the Z both in the up and down positions so that I can remove any of the contaminated lubrication. This is a very cheap brush and dustpan to be able to clean up the printer area or inside the chamber of any filament strands, dust, or debris that may be lying there. Might be a little haggard, but it does the job. Look at those bristles. And last but not least, something to keep on hand is a torch lighter, because as much as you might do to be able to tune any type of string out of your filament, even if you open up a vacuum sealed bag with silica or desiccant packets within it, you might have moisture right out of the bag. Sometimes you need to get printing that filament right away, whether you're on a deadline or simply want to be melting some filament, but don't worry. You could just take this torch lighter, making sure not to isolate it to a specific location for too long, and quickly go over that area to remove the stringing. Setting that all aside, we've got a cutting mat. It is an honorable mention because although it's unnecessary as a 3D printer tool, it is extremely helpful for somebody that uses a 3D printer to be able to perform their projects on. This is great because it protects whatever surface the cutting mat is sitting on, and if you could care less about that surface, at least you have a nice flat work area for whatever projects are in store. For example, I cut this PTFE despite having a set of cutters so that I could get a nice flush cut and not worry about putting a razor blade deep into my wooden desk. If you enjoyed the basics, I am going to be carrying on with an additional video of some of the more advanced tools that I like to have in my collection. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one. Until then, happy printing.